There are moments in life when you pour your heart out in prayer and are met with silence. You whisper your deepest fears, your greatest needs, your most fragile hopes, and it feels as though the heavens remain quiet. Days pass, months pass, sometimes even years, and in those stretches of waiting, doubt begins to creep in. Was I heard? Did my words matter? Or were they lost in the emptiness of the night? But here is the truth: no prayer ever vanishes. Not a single whisper goes unnoticed. Not one tear shed in the darkness is wasted. Every word you speak in sincerity is gathered, carried, and answered, though not always in the way or timing you expect. Sometimes the answer comes quickly, in a way that makes you smile and say, "This is exactly what I asked for." Other times, the answer is delayed not because you were ignored, but because something greater is being prepared for you. Delay is not denial, it is often a sign of protection, of timing, of unseen wisdom, and then there are moments when the answer is different from what you asked. You pray for one door to open, but it stays firmly shut only for you to realize later that a far better door was waiting down the road. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like being unheard was in fact being guided towards something better. Prayers are never about empty words, they are about connection. Each time you pray, you are opening a conversation with the one who knows you more intimately than you know yourself. Even if you don't feel an immediate response, that moment of prayer transforms you. It softens your heart, strengthens your patience, and reminds you that you are never truly alone. Think about the times when you prayed in despair, only to find unexpected strength afterward. The problem may not have vanished, but you somehow found the courage to endure it. That strength was an answer. Or remember the moments when you longed for something you never received, only to look back years later and realize life spared you from what would have harmed you. That no was an answer too, one wrapped in wisdom and mercy. Every dua is answered, but not every answer looks like what you imagined. Some are yes, some are not yet, and some are I have something better. The key is trust that your words were heard, trust that your tears were seen, and trust that the silence is never empty but filled with a response being written in ways you cannot yet see. This is why prayer should never stop, even when you feel nothing is changing. Because every time you pray, you are planting a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take years to break the soil, but with each prayer, something is happening beneath the surface. Something unseen is shifting, preparing, aligning. So if you're in a season where your heart feels heavy from unanswered prayers, remember this: your words are not forgotten, your voice is not ignored, the silence you hear is not absence but preparation. And one day, in ways you may not expect, you will see how every prayer was answered, every single one. Until then, keep speaking, keep whispering, keep hoping, because no prayer ever goes unheard and no dua is ever wasted. There are times when you whisper a prayer so quietly that even you can barely hear it. It slips from your lips in the middle of the night, when the world is asleep and the weight on your chest feels unbearable. Or maybe it's not even spoken aloud, it's a thought, a sigh, a tear sliding down your face when words refuse to form. And in those fragile moments you wonder, does this even count? Did anyone hear me? Or did it vanish into the air the second I breathed it out? The truth is, not a single whisper is lost. Every word you've ever spoken in sincerity, every plea that came from the deepest corners of your heart has been collected. It doesn't matter if it was strong and confident or weak and trembling, it mattered because it came from you. We often think prayers have to be loud, formal, or perfect. But some of the most powerful prayers are the quietest ones, the ones nobody else knows about. The whispered "help me" in a crowded room, the silent plea while sitting on a hospital bed, the half-broken words whispered into a pillow after heartbreak. These moments don't go unnoticed. They are gathered carefully, held with compassion, and remembered. Think of how precious it is when someone you love confides in you, not with grand speeches, but with a small, vulnerable whisper. That whisper carries more weight than 1,000 loud words. Why? Because it's real. Because it comes from the depths of their being. Your whispered prayers are the same, raw, unpolished, but deeply sincere, and that sincerity is what makes them powerful. Sometimes we think if no one else hears us, then maybe those words don't matter. But imagine the opposite. Isn't it even more sacred that your most private thoughts, your most hidden cries are known? that nothing, not even the words you struggled to say, ever disappears. Life is full of moments when you feel like your voice is too small, too weak, too insignificant. You see others whose prayers seem answered quickly, and you wonder if your whispers are simply too quiet to be noticed. But the measure of a prayer has never been its volume. It's not about how eloquent your words are or how strong you sound. The measure is always sincerity, and sincerity is often born in whispers. Think back on your life. How many times have you found yourself in desperate silence, unable to express the storm in your heart? Yet somehow later on you realized you were carried through, a door opened, a burden eased, a strength appeared. Was that coincidence? Or could it be that even the prayers you forgot you made, even the whispers you never thought were heard, were collected and answered in ways you didn't expect? There's something deeply comforting about knowing that nothing you've ever spoken in prayer has vanished. Even the ones you thought were ignored are still stored, still remembered, still shaping your path. Some answers come quickly, others are delayed, and some are transformed into something greater, but not one whisper is wasted. Every whisper is collected because every whisper matters. Every please in the dark, every thank you in the middle of the day, every why asked through tears, all of them are kept safe. And even if you feel unheard by the world, even if no one around you knows your struggles, your prayers are never lost in the noise. They rise, they are received, and they are treasured. So the next time you feel too tired to pray, remember this: even your sigh is counted. Even the tear you couldn't explain is understood. Even the whisper you thought was too small has already been collected. One of the hardest things about prayer is when you don't hear anything back. You speak, you cry, you ask with all your heart, and then there is silence. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and that silence starts to feel heavy. You begin to wonder if your words even reached anywhere, or if they just dissolved into the air. It feels like shouting into an empty room, but silence is not absence. Just because you don't hear an immediate answer doesn't mean you were ignored. Sometimes silence is part of the answer itself. It is a space being carved out, a pause where something unseen is unfolding. Think about planting a seed. After you bury it in the soil, there's nothing to see for a while. Days go by, and the earth above looks the same, no sprout, no change, just silence. But beneath the surface, life is stirring. Roots are forming, growth is happening, and eventually, something green will break through. That quiet stage is not emptiness, it is preparation. Prayer is the same. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening, it means something is growing beneath the surface. We're used to quick responses in life. Send a message, get a reply, ask a question, hear an answer, but prayer doesn't work on human timelines. Its answers are wrapped in wisdom, and wisdom knows when to say yes, when to say not yet, and when to give something different than what you asked. Silence often comes in those not yet moments, not because you're forgotten, but because the timing isn't right. Sometimes silence protects you. You may be asking for something that, if given immediately, would harm you or come too soon. The silence isn't a rejection, it's a shield. It's keeping you safe from what you can't yet see. Other times, silence stretches you. It teaches patience, deepens trust, and strengthens your resilience. In waiting, you grow in ways that instant answers could never shape you. Think of the times in your life when you didn't get what you wanted right away. Maybe at the time it felt unbearable, but looking back, can you see how those delays shaped you? How they led you to better outcomes or taught you lessons that still serve you today. What once felt like painful silence, you now see as protection or preparation. It's easy to misinterpret silence as abandonment. But imagine this: when a teacher gives their students an exam, they often remain silent. Not because they've left the room, but because they are watching closely. Their silence doesn't mean they don't care, it means they want the student to apply what they've learned, to grow through the challenge. That's how silence in prayer works too. It is not neglect, it is presence in a different form. Silence also creates space for you to search within yourself. When the noise of instant answers is gone, you are left with reflection. You ask deeper questions, you find hidden strengths, you connect more intimately with your own heart. In that quiet, you begin to discover who you are and what truly matters to you. And here's something comforting: silence doesn't last forever. There comes a day when the waiting ends, when the sprout breaks through the soil, when the answer arrives and suddenly the silence makes sense. You look back and realize that the quiet was never empty. It was full of work happening in the unseen. So if you find yourself in a season of silence, don't mistake it for absence. The fact that you feel the weight of it shows that your prayers are alive, that your connection is real. Something is happening, even if you can't see it yet. Trust the silence, let it stretch you, shape you, and prepare you, because silence is not the end of your prayer. It is simply a different kind of answer, one that says, wait, I am still working. Hold on, something is coming. When you pour your heart out in prayer, you often imagine what the answer should look like. Maybe it's a new opportunity, a healed relationship, a door opening exactly the way you picture it. You hold onto that image tightly, believing that anything less would mean your prayer went unheard. But the truth is, answers don't always look the way we expect them to. Sometimes the answer is a clear and resounding yes. You pray for help and suddenly the burden lifts. You ask for guidance and clarity comes. You long for relief and circumstances shift in your favor. These are the answers that make you smile, the ones that reassure you instantly. I was heard, but not every answer is yes. Sometimes the response is not yet. This is the kind of answer that tests patience. It's not a denial but a delay. It says the time isn't right. Waiting can feel like silence, but it's actually a space being created for the right pieces to fall into place. Think about how often you've wanted something immediately, only to later realize that if it had come sooner, you wouldn't have been ready for it. Delayed answers are often answers wrapped in wisdom, and then there are the times when the answer is different altogether. You ask for one door to open, but it stays firmly closed and another unexpected door appears instead. At first it feels confusing, maybe even painful. You think, but this isn't what I prayed for. And yet, when you look back later, you see that the unexpected answer was far better than what you originally wanted. Imagine a child asking for candy before dinner. The parent says no, not because they want to deprive the child, but because they know something nourishing is already being prepared. The child doesn't understand in the moment. All they see is denial. But the reality is that a healthier, more satisfying meal is waiting. Our lives work much the same way. What feels like rejection can actually be redirection, steering us towards something greater than we imagined. Every prayer is answered, but answers come in different forms. Yes, not yet, or I have something better. Each response carries meaning, even if it's not immediately clear. The key is learning to trust that an answer has come, even if it doesn't match your picture. Think about times in your own life when you prayed for something specific and didn't receive it. Maybe you felt crushed in the moment. But later on, didn't you often discover that life gave you something else, something that made you stronger, happier, or more at peace than your original request ever could have? Those are the hidden answers, the ones we only recognize in hindsight. It's important to remember that prayer isn't just about getting what you want. It's about connection, growth, and transformation. Sometimes the greatest answer isn't a change in your circumstances, but a change within you. You pray for a problem to disappear, but instead you're given the strength to face it. You ask for fear to vanish, but instead you're given courage to walk through it. You long for the pain to end, but instead you're given resilience that shapes you into someone new. These too are answers, just in a different form than expected. When you begin to see prayer this way, it transforms how you view life. No longer do you measure your prayers by whether you received exactly what you wanted. Instead, you begin to look for the hidden answers, the subtle gifts, the unexpected blessings. You realize that every sincere prayer has been heard, and every single one has been answered, just not always in the way you imagined. So the next time you feel disappointed that your prayer didn't bring the outcome you hoped for, pause and consider. Maybe the answer has already arrived, just in a different form. Maybe the closed door is protecting you. Maybe the delay is preparing you. Maybe the no is actually making space for a better yes. You haven't yet seen, because answers don't always come wrapped in the packaging you expect, but they always come. When most people think about prayer, they see it as a request, a way of asking for something they don't have. We imagine prayer as a bridge between our weakness and God's power, between our needs and His generosity. And while that's true, prayer is also something more profound. It doesn't just change what happens around you, it changes what happens within you. Every time you bow your head, whisper words in silence, or pour your heart out in tears, you are reshaping yourself. The act of prayer molds you in ways you may not immediately notice. You step into prayer as one person, and you rise from it a little different, a little stronger, a little softer in spirit. Why is that? Because prayer is an act of surrender. When you pray, you admit, I don't have all the answers, I'm not in control, I need help greater than myself. That kind of humility softens pride, dissolves arrogance, and creates space for growth. The world often teaches us to stand tall on our own, to rely only on our strength. But prayer reminds you that your strength is multiplied when you lean on something higher. Prayer also transforms your perspective. Think about it, when you bring your worries, fears, and hopes into prayer, you see them differently. Suddenly, your problems aren't towering mountains crushing you, they become challenges you're not facing alone. A storm may still rage around you, but prayer is like finding shelter in the middle of it. The storm doesn't vanish, but your heart finds calm. That calm changes the way you think, speak, and act. Over time, prayer builds patience. Waiting is never easy, but when you live in prayer, you learn to trust the process. You stop demanding instant results and start recognizing the beauty of timing. You learn that delay doesn't mean denial, and that silence doesn't mean absence. This kind of trust reshapes your character, making you more resilient, grounded, and hopeful. Prayer also nurtures compassion. When you pray for others, their struggles, their healing, their happiness, your heart stretches beyond your own concerns. You begin to feel connected to people in ways that make you kinder and gentler. Even when no one knows about the prayers you whispered for them, those unseen acts change you. They keep your heart from hardening in a world that often encourages self-centeredness. And then there's strength. Prayer doesn't always remove the weight you carry, but it strengthens your shoulders to bear it. You might walk into prayer weary, and though the situation hasn't shifted, you leave feeling renewed. That's not an accident, that's transformation. You discover courage you didn't know you had, peace you can't explain, and hope that refuses to die. Think of it this way, every prayer is like planting a seed in your soul. Some seeds blossom into visible changes in your life, opportunities, guidance, solutions. But many seeds grow quietly within, shaping who you are becoming. They turn you into someone wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and more connected to the source of all strength. That's why even unanswered prayers still matter, because while you may not see the outcome you wanted, you will still feel the change inside you. You become less anxious, more trusting, less bitter, more forgiving, less fragile, more enduring. Prayer works on the soil of your soul, clearing out weeds of fear and doubt, and nurturing flowers of faith and resilience. This transformation is subtle but powerful. Over time, people may notice a difference in you without even realizing it's prayer that shaped it. They'll see a calmness in your reactions, a softness in your words, a steadiness in your spirit. They'll wonder where it comes from, and you'll know. It's the quiet power of prayer working from within. So, while prayer is indeed a way to seek help, it's also a way to become someone new. You enter prayer with burdens and leave with strength. You enter with questions and leave with peace. You enter feeling empty and leave feeling whole. In the end, the greatest gift of prayer isn't always what changes around you. It's the change that happens inside of you. When you pray, it can feel like you're sending words into the air, hoping they land somewhere, hoping they grow into something. But what you may not realize is that every prayer you make is like planting a seed in soil you can't fully see. Some seeds sprout quickly, and you rejoice at how swiftly they bloom into blessings. Others remain hidden underground, invisible to the eye, giving you the impression that nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, life is stirring, roots are growing, something is taking shape, quietly, patiently, in ways you cannot yet imagine. Think about a farmer. He plants seeds in the ground and doesn't expect to see fruit the very next day. He trusts the soil, the rain, the timing. He knows growth takes time. Your prayers are like that. They go into the soil of life where they begin to work in unseen ways. You may not notice it at first, but with time, seasons change and those buried hopes push through, blossoming into realities far more beautiful than what you pictured. Sometimes the hardest part is the waiting. You pray, you hope, and yet nothing seems to change. The silence can be heavy, the delay frustrating. You might wonder if your prayers even matter, but just like seeds, prayers need their time to break through the ground. If you dig them up too soon, you won't give them a chance to grow. The unseen stage is just as important as the visible one. That's where patience is built, trust is strengthened, and faith is tested. There are also prayers that grow into something entirely different from what you imagined. You may ask for one thing, but the seed of that prayer blooms into something else, something you never thought to ask for, yet it turns out to be exactly what you needed. Just like planting a seed of wheat doesn't give you grapes, your prayers often blossom in the way they were designed to, not necessarily the way you pictured. That's part of the unseen wisdom at work. Even unanswered prayers aren't wasted. They too are seeds. Sometimes they're rerouted, shaping your path in a different direction. Other times, they protect you from something you don't realize would harm you. And still other times, they're stored for seasons you haven't reached yet. You might be praying today for something that won't reveal itself until years down the road. But when it does, you'll see how perfectly timed it was. The beauty of planting is that it requires trust. You bury something precious, cover it in soil, and let go of control. In that letting go, you're reminded that not everything is meant to be in your hands. Growth happens when you allow the unseen to do its work. That's what prayer teaches you, to trust that even when you don't see results, something is happening behind the curtain of life. And here's another truth. Not all seeds are meant to bloom in this world. Some prayers you make are stored as treasures for a time and place beyond here. They are never wasted, never lost. They live on, waiting to bloom where they will matter most. That perspective changes everything. It turns disappointment into hope, silence into anticipation, and waiting into trust. When you think of prayer as planting, you realize it's less about forcing results and more about nurturing faith. Each prayer you make adds to the garden of your soul. Over time, that garden grows lush with patience, gratitude, resilience, and hope. You may not even notice the changes at first, but others will see it in you. They'll sense the calmness, the strength, the quiet hopefulness that comes from someone who knows their seeds are in safe soil. So the next time you pray and feel like nothing is happening, remind yourself, roots are forming. Growth is unfolding in silence. A season is coming where blossoms will appear, and you'll realize that not a single word, not a single tear, not a single sigh was wasted. Every whisper planted something. Every hope went somewhere. Every seed has its purpose. And though you cannot always see the process, you can be certain of this: the garden of your prayers is never barren. It's alive, waiting for the right season to bloom.